hello, Susan, hello, oh my goodness, all my friends. Let's see, oh, who else is here?
Trying.
Hi, Annie. Oh, Annie's working on her. Let's see who else we have. Is this Margie Plow, Grace Plow, who's here? Okay. Great, I'm so glad to see all these wonderful people. Makes me so happy. Are there more translations going around? Okay. Okay, but we also have Torah books. I have the books. I brought paper, or if someone wants to have a book. She did what? We have here too. Look at all my fun friends. Here you go, Clarice. Hey, honey, how are you? Good to see you. Shabbat shalom. Amy, you have one or you need one? Okay. I'm gonna put another one over here. Second. Yeah, she's there.
Anytime you say.
Yeah, like if you have it enough, it's great to have to reach from the.
Where are the birds?
Okay, who's ready? It's 11. It's time. Hi, David, good to see you. Hi, Cheryl, good to see you. Great, wonderful. Okay, we're gonna get started. Let me. Oh, okay, let's take a deep breath. And we're starting. Okay. All right, Shabbat Shalom. I am so thrilled to see all of you today online. We can all wave to our friends online and to everyone in the room. Let's all just engage in our Shabbat ritual of letting it all go. So put your pens down, put your papers away. You don't need to see or look at anything yet. And just allow yourself to leave the past week out of this room. You don't have to relinquish and let go completely. Just allow it to reside outside of this Beit Midrash, our virtual Beit Midrash, our in-person Beit Midrash. This is our house of study. It is a place that welcomes each and every one of you. It is a place that invites us to be led by our inquiry, by our curiosity, to discover something new and interesting out of the words that are familiar. It is a space that welcomes the beauty of insight. It is a space that encourages conversation and dialogue. It's a place that insists on Shema, on listening. A place that allows us to become still and quiet so that we can truly open our ears, open our minds, open our hearts to the wisdom and richness of the words of our peers, of our tradition, and that still small voice that resides within each of us. May this be a place not just of tranquility and shalom, of peace, but may it also be a place of drasha, of living words of Torah, a space that invites the words that mingle within us to be mingled with the words that have been sustaining pieces of our heritage. And may we find new words and discover their meaning together. Amen. And welcome. So today we open up Parshat Shoftim. What does Shoftim mean? Judges.
Thank you.
Tonight is Shabbat Shoftim. It is also Justice Shabbat. So I hope that you'll be joining us for services at 7:30, where we will honor the incredible work of our social justice team and of the people in our congregation, our community who have put so much of their heart into creating opportunity for all of us to be tzedek, tzedek, sirdo, pursuers of justice. We're gonna study what those words mean today. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof is from the Torah portion this week that we will look at. We're gonna read the words, we're gonna ask ourselves a few questions. We're going to explore a little bit deeper as to why at this point in time is Moses, our leader, now speaking about what it means to lead. What does it mean to set up a system of governance? What does it mean to have judges and potentially rulers, monarchs, when we inhabit the land of Israel? And why at this point in his life does he find this to be a meaningful message? And what are we asking the people of Israel to hear and to internalize? What are we asking them to do, and how are they going to understand what it means to lead, to have leaders? What is the role of a leader? And what does tzedek mean? What does justice actually mean in the context of which we'll read it? Sounds good? Okay, so let's first start with we're gonna do a little flip-flopping here of my text, but for now, let's begin with the lesson for the study of Torah. Ready? Together? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvot v'tzivanu la'aseh Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who made us holy with your mitzvot and commanded us to study words of Torah. Okay, beautiful. And so now what we're going to do is, I'm going to share a different screen. For my friends online, I want you to actually have the words of the Torah portion in front of you. Okay? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to read, we're in Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 16, verse 18. So if you're in a book, it's Deuteronomy, chapter 16, beginning with verse 18. If you're on the page is in front of you. If you're online, it's in front of you. Are we ready? Now remember, I'm gonna read and you're gonna what?
Listen.
Oh my God. But what does listening mean?
Open our ears to hear you.
Okay, but what are you gonna do when you see the words?
Think about it.
What stands out to you? Listening to the words is the first level, it's the pshat level. What I want you to do is we're reading it, we're hearing the words, but then what words stand out for you? And more importantly to me, the next level, because we've already been doing this now for a few weeks, studying Torah. I want us to get a little bit deeper into the questions that arise for us. What questions arise as we read the text? Okay, that's really interesting to me. I want to understand what your questions are. What are you thinking about? Not necessarily about solutioning or coming to the answer at the beginning. It's about what questions arise as we read and hear the text. Okay, here we go. Parsha Shoftim. You shall appoint magistrates, Shoftim, judges, and officials for your tribes in all the settlements that your God is giving you, and they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality. You shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that your God is giving you. I'm going to end there. We have 3 verses. What did you hear? What stands out for you? What questions arise?
How are they appointed?
Okay, great. First question. How does this actually work? Okay. How are they appointed? Good. What else, Tara?
I know this has been discussed before, and I forgot what Parsha it is, when Jethro was telling Moses, you're doing too much day and night, taking all of these cases, you really need to appoint these judges to help you with these cases, and you can take the big ones. You're burning the candle above that, so I feel like it's revisiting of that.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so what Tara is bringing us back to is in Parsha Yitro, which is also the Parsha where we receive the 10 Commandments. Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, takes a look at all that Moses is doing already. From the moment he becomes at standing at the burning bush, to going into Egypt, to standing before Pharaoh, to rallying the Israelites to cross the sea, to now getting to the other side of the sea, to now beginning their journey. Now they've made it to the base of the mountain. And before they've even received the 10 Commandments, Yitro looks at his son-in-law and goes, whoa, this is not a sustainable model. Let me give you some insight and wisdom as how to lead. Leading does not mean that you are the one and the only. Set up a council, a group of people that are going to help you guide and lead this people. Right? Someone that you can speak to, that you can trust, counselors and advisors, that you can also delegate the small things to. Right? Not everything is a level Moses. Right? Not everything is urgent. Trying to understand and modulate what those things are and to whom do we go to for certain things, right? So now fast forward, book of Devarim, they're about to enter into the promised land. Moses now has what? After 40 years of leading, what does he sort of come up with?
Distribution of leadership.
I'm gonna die.
Okay, a distribution of leadership. This is like, you ever hear of like the 7 effective whatever for leadership? It's like Moses's 7 effective rules for leadership, right? He's in many ways he's been leading for 40 years. He now is not going to take the people, and as we've talked about, Joshua who will also be a very capable and competent leader. But they're now becoming, like we've talked about, they're going to be dwelling in the land, which requires more of them than just a wandering people. They have to set up a system, a civil society, which requires governance, which requires rules and laws. And you can't just self-govern. You need to have your judges, your magistrates, creating a system of the rule of law. Right? Jack, hold on, Jack, and then Clarice.
Sure. You're on mute.
That's Jack's wife.
He's on mute.
Jack, you're on mute. There you are. No, there you go. There you go.
Okay. What
You're good.
what I see here is from the Parsha of Pinchas on Moses goes from being a leader to being a teacher. And in this aspect, at this time, Moses' job is to teach these people and the leaders what to expect in the land. And he's given up his leadership to become a teacher that we know him as.
Yep, absolutely. Right, that's exactly right. Like he's imparting his wisdom on leadership. He's imparting his wisdom on what it means to live in a society that has a set of rules and law and how you set this up to be sustainable and effective. And what we'll learn in a moment, just. Okay, yeah, Spencer, then Clarice, sorry.
That's
Or
all right.
No, Clarice, go ahead, sorry.
So how did they determine qualifications to be a judge?
Good.
You mentioned a lot of things that they were looking for, but how did?
Right, so we don't know yet, but right, that's the perfect question. So it just says you shall appoint these officials, these judges, right? So the first question we have is, well, what are their qualifications? How do they become a judge? Very good. Annie said, right, like Annie asked the similar question. How do we know? How do they become appointed? What does that mean? Good. So this is how we're thinking. We want to think about those things as we learn.
How do they define justice?
Very good. Okay, right? Justice shall you pursue, tzedek tirdo. What exactly does that mean? All right, good. We're gonna keep reading, but these are the questions I want you to think about. What does justice mean? Does anyone also find the structure of the sentence interesting? Ask what is interesting to you.
Well, they repeat justice twice.
Exactly. Remember, nothing is superfluous. Everything is intentional. Justice, comma, justice. Tzedek, tirdo. We're gonna study a text from the commentary on that example as to why twice. But good, Bobby wants to know, why say it twice? It's easy. You could have even easily said tzedek, tirdo. Justice, pursue it. Okay, but we say it twice. All right?
The word of partiality, I was somewhat focusing on because
Yeah.
I don't know how they define impartiality, and it's also probably hard to reach for sure.
No, that's excellent, right? They're starting to now set up the qualifications. Who is a judge and what makes a judge? A judge should what? First thing is what though?
Not really unfit.
judge fairly.
I'd like to know about the word bribes, because were bribes common, or that's an interesting word that's there.
Very interesting, right? Okay, so the first thing is, right, so there's all of these things are there for a reason. So number one, what makes a judge? A judge is someone who is going to govern the people with what?
Sure.
Do ju- they themselves are going to govern with due justice. What does that mean? They're going to judge fairly, right? Because it says you shall not judge unfairly. You have to judge fairly. You shall not show partiality. You need to be impartial. Okay. Which means also, in order to be impartial, you yourself have to do that, but also you cannot be swayed by anybody trying to pull you to their side, because you have to do what? And judge fairly. Okay? And for bribes, listen to what a bribe is. A bribe blinds the eyes of the discerning and upsets the plea of the just. Okay? Right? So it's really, the bribe is going to blind, shut off the sight of the discerning. Okay? Justice, justice shall you pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that your God has given you. So what does that mean? Not only justice, justice shall you pursue, that's the first part of the sentence. But do that, pursue justice, be a seeker of justice, so that you can what? Thrive and occupy the land that your God has given you. This is another part of the breed of that covenantal relationship, that we will inherit this land by, as inheritors of the land, we must, among other things, pursue justice. Okay, yeah.
I don't know if this is too specific, but I think it's a bit of a wrinkle. A lot of these judges and the people moving to the land of Israel are only a generation removed from the people who were higher level within the tribes. And I'm wondering if you're a brother or you're a cousin, does that affect who can be a judge, or can you judge a situation? Like, you have to recuse yourself if you know someone or are distantly related.
Can you be impartial? Right, there's a requirement. Yeah, that's a non-negotiable. All right, let's keep reading because some of the questions, and then we're gonna come back.
I guess
Okay,
the requirements have changed nowadays.
say it again.
Yes.
I'm being sarcastic. I said, I guess the requirements have changed nowadays.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annie. Let's keep going. 17, verse 21. You shall not set up a sacred post, any kind of pole beside the altar of your God that you may make, or erect a stone pillar, for such your God detests. Okay, let's continue. You shall not sacrifice to your God an ox or a sheep that has any defect of a serious kind, for that is abhorrent to your God. If there is found among you, in one of the settlements that your God is giving you, a man or a woman who has affronted your God and transgressed the covenant, turning to the worship of other gods and bowing down to them, to the sun or the moon or any of the heavenly hosts, something I never commanded, and you have been informed or have learned of it, then you shall make a thorough inquiry. If it is true, the fact is established that a abhorrent thing was perpetuated in Israel. You shall take the man or the woman who did that wicked thing out to the public place, and you shall stone that man or woman to death.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I understand the pshat. Okay, I understand the pshat. We all understand the pshat, the surface level of the text. But let's dig deeper. What is actually happening here? I want you to really think about, remember, we're talking about justice. We're setting up a court of law. We're gonna have judges, magistrates that are going to make sure that we are all living in accordance with the rule of law. And what now in this next few verses are we starting to learn? Yeah,
It
Marilyn?
feels to me like he's saying, don't make judges gods. You know, that, be careful that you don't elevate them to a place of worship.
Okay. Okay, what else do you see in the text? Yeah, Parsha.
Not only do we judge them, but now we're allowed to punish them.
Okay, so now, keep going.
And it's upon all of us to punish them.
Okay, so all of a sudden, now we know there are judges, there are magistrates. Now we know, and we're learning about this example, is showing us an example of what? Consequences, but of what? Committing what?
Capital crime.
A crime, okay, like just on the surface of a crime.
But specifically idolatry.
Right, so but that's the first crime, right? This is our first example. That the crime here, that Moses and God are sharing first and foremost, because where are they about to go into?
Holy Land.
Into a land
That has other gods than other people.
that have other people's other gods, they're no longer insular. They're no longer just amongst their tribe, they're not isolated, they're gonna be going into another community, another culture. And they may start to see things that this people haven't seen. They could be intrigued or interested, they could be reminded, they have heard stories of that far off land of Egypt. Of those gods, right, that they can see. And so the first and foremost they're saying is, remember the 10 Commandments. You shall not have any other gods but me. You don't worship other gods but me.
Does it say but me or before me?
You shall not have any other gods before me. Right? Like I'm your only God. I'm the Lord your God. Okay?
Does that mean I'm your only God, or does that mean I'm your primary God?
Oh. No, I am your, right, like, you shall have no other gods. No other gods, I'm the Lord your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God,
Before
Right?
is interesting.
right?
The word before is interesting though.
How so?
Well, because what Marcia's saying, if you worship other things, but you make God your primary, but you could have other things that you worship. Or, If it's but me, it's different than before me.
I don't think so. I think before me could also mean in the space that I can see, which is everywhere.
Because you're going back to look.
Hey, we're looking at the
What
Hebrew,
does the Hebrew say?
that's, keep talk amongst yourselves about this. That's okay, you got it.
I always found it interesting that they even acknowledge other gods, so it always intrigued me.
No, well, look, God also has a heavenly court. Right?
Say that again?
God has a heavenly court, I mean, there are other angels, not as gods, they work in the service of God, right? But there are we do acknowledge that there are other gods, of course, because there are other peoples around. Right, we're not saying that we are the only people on earth, right? We're not the only people on earth. And this is important because it's important that this people, besides me. So here's let's look at
But
the
aren't they
Hebrew.
considered false gods?
Yeah, of course, right? Lo hiya lecha Elohim acherim al panai. Okay, so you shall have no other gods besides me.
Or worship before me to
Besides.
worship.
Interesting. Yeah, besides, is it, could you Sapphire? Like most maybe
Besides me, that
Right.
makes better sense than.
before me, yeah, besides me, okay, so. Right, but here, lo ta'aseh lecha, you shall not make for yourself a sculptured image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above or on the earth below or in the waters underneath. We're very clear. It's very clear, right? Because I'm the Lord your God who took you out. Here it is again. Lo tishachave lehem, lo tavdem, ki anochi Adonai Elohecha. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. I'm not saying they don't exist.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. Just like in here, in this Parsha right here. If there is found amongst you somebody, man or woman, who is turned to the worship of other gods and bowing down to them, to the sun or the moon or any other heavenly host, something I never commanded. I'm very clear, right? We are now saying not only is it transgressing the commandments, right? Lest you forget, it's not just a religious thing. Okay, like I'm making like a little joke, but like it's not just about the religiosity of this, but we're setting up a system of governance and of laws. That is one of our laws. You shall not do this. And if they commit this crime, okay, it is punishable by death, by stoning, right? So now all of a sudden, what are we starting to learn? Crime and punishment. But what does it say? We have to be really clear here, okay? What does it say? Here.
There can't be a mistake. It has to be crystal clear that they're guilty.
Yes, here it is. And you have been informed. Here's this important part. Okay, because this goes back to tzedek tirdo. You have been informed that this has happened, or you've learned of it. Okay, then you shall make a thorough inquiry. It is not enough. It is not enough to try someone by assumption
Or gossip.
or presumption or gossip. Okay, you could be informed of it, you can hear about it. That does not make them guilty of it. The first thing you have to do is what? Create a case. Create a case. And you're gonna bring this case before the judges. Create an inquiry. Find out if it's true. Okay? Now, how do we know that it's true? Now we go to number 6. A person shall be put to death only on the testimony of 2 or more witnesses. This is an important element to halakha, to Jewish law. There always have to be 2 or more witnesses. Okay? No one shall be put to death on the testimony of a single witness. Okay? So now we're starting to get into the details of what it means, not just to have shoftim, judges and magistrates on a court of law, but now we are learning the particulars about what it means to bring a case, what information is valid in a court of law here, and what you need in order to try someone. Okay? Not a single witness, 2 witnesses.
What is
Let,
on number 5, we get thing out to the public place where you should stone them, man or woman, to death, so it has to be public.
right, you took them down to the public place, to the main square. That's where the consequence or the punishment would be administered. Why is that?
Because it's a deterrent.
I'm not even sure of that, I think it might be because you need to be accountable to the people as well, you can't have this stuff done in secret.
Okay, so accountability, it could be deterrence, accountability, right? There's all those things could hold to be true, right?
Nothing to
But-
hide.
Right? But listen to what it says here. Let's keep going. Okay? Let the hands of the witnesses, listen to this, let the hands of the witnesses be the first to put the condemned to death, followed by the hands of the rest of the people. Thus, you will sweep out evil from your midst.
That's really,
Now, what makes this interesting? Who, Bobby, you said that's really,
it makes it really smart,
How
because
so?
if you were the one who brought it to the judges, you were the initiator of this, then you're the initiator of the consequence too.
now, you may or may not have been the one who brought it. Okay? Whose hands specifically? The witnesses. Now, because remember, it says you could bring it, it's something you've heard it,
Yeah.
right? It's been brought to your attention. But the witnesses, the reason why is because the witnesses play an important role in this entire system. Number 1, they have had to been first-hand witnesses. They had to have witnessed the transgression. It's the first thing. That's what then qualifies them, if there's 2 or more, to then share their testimony before the judges. And then if that person is deemed guilty, then those witnesses are the ones who throw the first stone. Marcia.
I would think that would help to deter people from lying, because I think it's really hard to put that first stone.
Yeah, right? This is not just like, I cannot stand that guy in the tent next to me. Gosh, is he a nudge, right? Like everything, right? Like, I'm gonna get him. Like right? Now, also just think about the complexity of what it means to actually find somebody guilty,
Wow.
It's a high bar.
right? Cause what are the elements, first and foremost,
Get that inquiry.
right?
You have to then get 2 witnesses and you need someone to judge impartially.
But 2 witnesses who had to have seen it. First-hand accounts of whatever it is. 2. Who saw it and then testified to it. And like Marcia said, it also provides a bar of impartiality of the witnesses. Right? They are sharing what they saw. And the hope is that they are sharing with absolute truth, because tzedek tirdof, justice shall you pursue, not the judges only, not the witnesses only, the people. So what the tradition and what our sources are showing us here and demanding us to pay attention to is that this is not just tzedek tirdof for God. God is not the only one that is responsible for justice. The judges are not the only ones responsible for justice. But we, the people, are also accountable and responsible for being pursuers of justice. Whereas the example with Yitro is important in acknowledging that Moses now needs to set up a set of governance to help him lead, right? What this Torah portion Shov team is teaching us now is you're now going in to be dwellers of this land. You're going to set up a society and a civil society that's going to have a set of rules of law. We are no longer just dependent on hoping that God is the one that's providing everything around us. And we're not just going to leave it to the hands of the leaders. We too are responsible. We too have a role, and a significant role to play in the society in which we are building, in the land that we are inheriting. But in order to occupy and stay there and live there and be there and grow there and multiply there, we have another set of responsibilities. It's not enough just to live according to God's ways and do the mitzvot. It's not enough. Tzedek tirdof. Now we are responsible on another level of maintaining justice, seeking justice, and making sure that justice is dished out fairly. Wow, justly. That justice is right. Justice, justly, right? All those things. Okay. Thus, this last line of 7 is very interesting. Thus, you will sweep out evil from your midst. Wouldn't that be so nice?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be so nice?
I bet we can find 2 witnesses.
Right? Right? It's an aspiration. I think this last line is aspirational. We make it very hard. And if we wanted to go down the rabbit hole on another class for another time of halakha, of Jewish law, what happens with Jewish law and with the rabbis is they begin to narrow and make it very difficult for these types of punishments to be laid out, right? Like the very prime example of that is the stubborn and rebellious child, right? Like in the Torah, it says if you have a stubborn rebellious child, you take the child down and you stone the child. Well, the rabbis say, oh my God, like, whoa, like let's take a step back on that one. What exactly is what makes her a stubborn and rebellious child? They define the category so narrowly that it would be nearly impossible to actually define that person, that child as stubborn and rebellious, therefore the punishment does not fit the crime, right? So, but here, what it says is, the reason why we are doing this, the reason why we have this type of a punishment for this type of crime, number one, the severity of the crime, it's the first one. Right? And it's serious. But the reason why we're doing it this way, we're going down to the center square, thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. The aspiration here is that we are hoping that by seeing that we are serious, that there is our set of rules of law, that there is serious punishment for crimes that are reprehensible. The hope is that you will hear this, you will see this, you will understand this, and therefore you will live according to justice, right? That's the aspiration, Marcia.
And yet,
Okay, yes, and
like, all I can think of is when you wanna scare people, you can see people on cranes hanging in the Middle East for some injustice. And that's not what I want my society to be.
couldn't agree with you more, right? That's why the rabbis are gonna start to narrow the
Actually, a
definition.
lot of those countries still stone people, just.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, this is not unheard of, right? But in our tradition, begin to narrow the scope of those particular crimes. Now, what we'll learn is does that mean that the Ten Commandments don't hold true? No. Right? But the understanding is that there will be punishments, there are consequences to our actions. This Torah portion now says to us, yes, there are consequences to our actions, but there are some actions that are now beyond the scope of the law. And that's a difference in a wandering community of Israelites in the desert to a community that is going to settle. And knowing and recognizing from Moses, who is teaching us this for a reason, is that these are necessary in order to have a vibrant, peaceful society that works. Just like we all understand that, right? Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. Right? But there are boundaries. We're learning the boundaries of the law.
I think one of the most important concepts also is that, okay, they say there will be no evil anymore, but it comes back to the people, even in the case of the courts. We have to be vigilant and keep our eyes wide open in order to recognize the bad and evil.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, Clarice, that you mentioned too, is that it doesn't say there won't be evil anymore. It's very specific. Evil from your midst. That's different than saying there won't be evil anymore. Right? It's different.
There was no other level of punishment, so.
No, I mean, yeah, no, there's different, but we're not gonna go there. I wanna keep it, exciting for you, Liliana. Okay, number 8, here we go. If a case is too baffling for you to decide, be it a controversy over homicide, civil law, or assault, matters of dispute in your courts, you shall promptly repair to the place that your God will have chosen, and appear before the Levitical priest or the magistrate in charge at the time and present your problem. When they have announced to you the verdict in the case, you shall carry out the verdict that is announced to you from the place that God has chosen, observing scrupulously all their instructions to you. You shall act in accordance with the instructions given you and the ruling handed down to you. You must not deviate from the verdict that they announced to you, either to the right or to the left. Okay, I'm gonna stop there for a second. What is interesting? What stood out for you? Yeah,
This is an appellate court system.
okay. Could go on.
This is like in the US system, if something's really complicated or no one can decide, they can go to the appellate court. These, priests are the appellate court in this case.
Very good. So there's different levels in the court system. It's not just up to the one judge or the one group, right? Like, you can appeal. Or what I love about this, and what I find so fascinating about this, is that it says here in the first line of verse 8, if a case is too baffling for you to decide.
The judge
The
can't,
recognition that there is complexity. It is not always black and white.
it's also saying judges might not be able to know, you might need someone better,
Right, because why?
they're humans.
They're human beings, right? But also, not everything is so simple. He bowed down to this God, he bowed down to that God, or he didn't observe Shabbat. It's not always so simple. This is gonna be difficult. We're inhabiting a society. You'd be living completely differently than you've ever lived before. The recognition from Moses here, and ultimately from God here, is the recognition that human beings are going to be governing other human beings. It's in our Torah. It's no longer just gonna be a divine rule. Okay, only, right? But the recognition that we're setting something up differently, there's going to be a civil society with a set of rules that are gonna be beyond even the bounds of what's written in this Torah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
In the book of Deuteronomy, Moshe is getting ready to let us, to lead us, to say, go forth into this land, to live into this place. And not everything is contained within this scroll. Right? If a case is too baffling for you, that means not all the answers are right here in front of you. I've tried to do my very best in my final speeches and sermons to you. In 40 years of leading you, I have tried to do my best to impart my wisdom and insight to you. But what I want you to know, human beings, Israelites, followers of God, sustainers of Torah, that it's not always right in front of you. Sometimes it's going to be too baffling for you to decide. Even the ones who hold the title of leader, of judge, of magistrate, of Levitical priest, sometimes it's even too hard for us to decide. It takes more. In those matters, and the matters of disputes in your courts, you shall promptly repair to the place your God will have chosen. I'm gonna say there is a system. You're gonna go to these priests or the magistrates. You're gonna present your problem. And then there'll be a verdict. And you're gonna carry out that verdict. And you're gonna carry out that verdict that is announced to you from that place that God has chosen and observe it. And all the instructions. Right? Sometimes it's not gonna be so clear. Don't flip out. There is a system to handle that too. I've thought of that, right?
So what's the difference between magistrates and
And judges,
judges and Levitical priests?
right, so who are the priests, who are the Levitical priests?
Cohens are the
Right.
people who are, they're the bridge between the people and God.
Right, and what was their role? Right, right, they're the ones that we went to offer up our sacrifices to God. Okay, they managed the temple, right, like that was their role. Okay, so what's interesting here though, is that we're also setting up a differentiation between the religious aspects of the sacrifice and prayer and communication and with God and our religious worship, our ritual worship, right? The Levites were part of that ritual. We went to them for the ritual. Now all of a sudden we're creating this whole other system, which is not so different. I mean, we had it in the desert, but now it's more sophisticated. That for all other things, civil disputes, right? We now have a court of law that governs our behavior. Okay, our civic behavior, our civil behavior, yeah.
So if the judges and the magistrates are in charge of civil law and they have a problem and it's too complicated, how do the Kohanim react? How are they prepared to judge a civil case if they're just in charge of sacrifices?
Who do they talk to?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot that.
So they are the interpreters of the Torah, so they best know. Like, they're the most trained in Torah, so they probably know best the.
I don't know if they're trained in Torah, they're doing sacrifices.
Right, but their role is
To offer it up.
is to, yeah, but they're to offer up the sacrifice, but they're also the ones that are managing the house of God. Right, like on a very simplistic level, right? But they'll have wisdom. They'll have wisdom. Okay, hopefully, yeah, I hope for a lot of things, but they are the sustainers of the Torah, right? The law. The law is still Torah. It doesn't mean that we have a separate legal system, right? Like, there is Jewish law.
So
That
besides
tells us how to
sacrificial
govern.
things, they also interpret the law.
They're in charge of the law.
Okay.
Right, they understand, they know what they need to do, or they're gonna say, okay, so let me take this up and just like Moses, when a case was too difficult for Moses, like we learned about with the daughters of Zelophehad, and he went to God and said, what do I do here? Right, like we have a precedent. Now, one of the things we're gonna learn about with Jewish law is that it's built on precedent. We're gonna learn about that here. Right? It all is based on precedent. Moses, when a case was too difficult for Moses, and Moses can say that because Moses knows, look, even me, there were cases that were too difficult for me. So you know what I did? I went right to God. So people you go to the Levites, they know how to talk to God.
And then eventually they would have the temple and of course the Sanhedrin,
Yeah,
72 judges.
and those are the magistrates, like there's a whole system, right? But the most important piece here is to understand and to know that it's complex. Not everything is so simple. Not every case is, oh, two people saw, Shlomo bowing down to a gold idol. Not every case is gonna be like that. Not everything's gonna be like that. And we're gonna have to, and there's gonna be different examples and different situations and different scenarios. And as we go into, and as we investigate these inquiries, again, it becomes complex because what are we dealing with? We're dealing with human beings and their behavior. But there's recognition of that here. Okay? All right. So I'm gonna stop here because I want us to study some of the commentaries. Okay? Good? Okay. All right. So Rabbi Moshe Shammah says, it is a major Torah innovation that the responsibilities of the leaders and the regulations governing and limiting their power are part of the public record of equal accessibility with the other laws and expected to eventually be known by all. Such common knowledge facilitates a degree of accountability to the public and helps promote continuation of the proper division of power and prevention of domination and abuse by a single group of the leadership. So what Rabbi Moshe is referring to is putting all of this out before the people. All of us are responsible for living in accordance with this set of law. And it is common knowledge as to how this is all gonna happen. This is not gonna be privately spoken to amongst the judges, and we'll let the judges just know how things are gonna work. Right? So that they operate behind a cloak, right? No. That the responsibilities of leaders and the regulations governing and limiting their power are part of the public record. The way that the leaders, the judges, the magistrates should function, and the way in which they should behave is public knowledge. It is public record. I'm sharing it with you now. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, we're talking about an open society.
Yes, in transparency, that's the word,
That's it.
right? That's what this Torah portion is teaching us. It's not enough that the judges know what their responsibility and their roles are. But the people need to know. That the judges, in order to assume that level of title and of role in this society, there are things that one must do and be in order to serve in that role. And me, as part of the public, know what those things are. It can't just be anybody who happened to be Moses's nephew. It can't just be someone that was best buds with Joshua. No, there's a set of characteristics and traits and responsibilities that they must assume in order to have this role. and the people know about it. Right? And this is how we're gonna govern, and this is how we will be held accountable. And this way, we are preventing the abuse of power by a single group of leadership. Okay? That's what the Parsha is. So justice, tzedek. Why twice? Our traditions, Gunther Cloud says, as expressing a partnership between the justice sought by God and the justice rendered by humanity. Justice, tzedek, tirdof, justice shall you pursue. It's written twice. Gunther Cloud says the reason is because the first justice is the justice sought by God. The second justice is the justice rendered by humanity, and it's a partnership. We both play a role in pursuing justice. Okay? He adds further that the rabbis, by explaining that the two most frequently used biblical names of God are Elohim and Adonai, refer to the different attributes of God. Elohim, midat hadin, the attribution of justice, and the latter, midat harachamim, the attribute of love and mercy. And that the way for both people to live should be a mixture of both of these. That justice shall you pursue. One, justice divine, justice human beings. The next level of that, the first tzedek is Elohim, which is justice, right? And Adonai is mercy. That in order to pursue justice, there's the justice piece, but also that justice is pursued through the lens of mercy and love. So tzedek is not just justice, justice. From the eyes of the rabbis, it is justice from a divine scape, justice from a human being responsibility, justice as being that which we seek out, that sense of fairness, equality, right? All those words that we want to attribute to justice, but also that justice is pursued through the lens, through the being, through the attribute of rachamim, of mercy and of compassion. And that in order for us to truly pursue justice, it needs to be a mixture of those two things, the rabbis say. And that's why it's repeated twice. Yeah, how does that sit for people?
What about the theory that you have to hear it 3 times in order for it to register to your brain?
Tzedek for you, Clarice. You are the one responsible to say it the 3rd time.
Okay.
You can easily make the argument, which is a nice drasha, by the way. Justice, tzedek, for God, that God administers. Justice of humanity, that humanity renders. But then the 3rd justice is unwritten because it's the one that you said. Oh, mazal tov. Amen, amen. That's a drasha. You wrote my opening for tonight. Thanks, Marie. Okay, right? It's the unspoken tzedek because it's the tzedek that we see and we provide and we make to happen. Okay, but through the lens of Deen, the judgment cannot be separate from rachamim, from mercy, from compassion. Right? If we think about the system and the way that the system is set up just from this particular section of the Torah portion, is that the levels that they are suggesting, there's a court, there are judges, there are magistrates. It can't just be that we assume that someone committed a crime, but rather we need to have we have to have 2 witnesses, we have to have an inquiry, we have to do the work, right? It's our responsibility. It's incumbent upon us to open the case, find 2 first-hand witnesses, hear their testimony, and then the judgment. And we should be doing that through the midah of rachamim, of mercy and compassion, in order to pursue deen, which is justice. Let me see.
Does that leave it open that even if they commit a crime, then you don't wanna cast that stone then with love and mercy?
Oh, interesting. What do you
Throw
think?
a big one, that's merciful when you're being stoned.
What do you think?
Get it done with one shot.
So say it again, cause I stopped the share so that they could see online, so, hold on one second, Marcia's gonna say it, so Marcia, say it
What I
again.
said,
So hold on,
even if
hold on,
somebody
they can't hear.
is found guilty. With love and mercy, does that mean that the punishment is either lessened or not?
Right, so I think it all depends on the crime. I think it also depends on the law, on the precedent, right? I think it also depends on where does that mercy and that compassion just come from? Is that compassion for the person, for the perpetrator, or is it ultimately compassion for the community? Right? Like, it's complex. There is no one answer, right? Now, there's precedent, there's an entire, you know, halls of books of Jewish law that discusses and that pores over these things. If one thinks that in Jewish law, it's an easy answer as to what should happen for the consequence, then one has not studied the deep richness of halacha, right? It is, like I mentioned before, in terms of narrowing the scope and the definition for certain things that would, in the Torah, would no longer translate to what society is today, which is the entire literature of responsa literature, which is over time when Jews have inhabited different places and different times, and the Torah is no longer resonating in where they currently find themselves, then they have to ask a question, a shela, to the rabbinic authorities, and they receive a tshuva, they receive an answer in order to how you then administer that case. Which is in and of itself a phenomenal aspect of Jewish law, is that the law is one thing and it's based on the precedent, and here's where we came to it. But then the whole idea that we can now ask a question about, well, I see what has been done before, but here's something particular that's come up in our situation, in our community, how do we respond? And then what the rabbinic authorities at the time would do is study the precedent and travel the journey all the way to the current question to figure out and to answer appropriately, so that they are creating a tshuva, an answer that is reflective of where we've come from, but also is responsive to the time in which we're living. Jack, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think that when we talked about justice, etc. Let me just shut this off. When we talk about justice, we speak of God as being our Father and our King. Justice is blind. It's black and white. It's only when your Father is involved where there's some compassion involved in applying the law.
So say that one more time.
Justice, being blind, is black and white. There's a law I mean, our Supreme Court supposedly is similar to that. The law is the law. However, justice does not include compassion, which is where, when we speak of Adonai, we speak of the Adonai as our Father, our King. The King represents justice, and our Father represents compassion.
Okay, that's beautiful. That's a nice that's a nice commentary on the text. I also think, though, that I don't think justice is completely devoid of mercy. I think that there is law that, and especially with the creation of a different set of responsa literature and understanding precedent, that we do come to different answers and different rulings based on the journey that we've traveled from behind, and then recognizing where we currently are. I think a system with no mercy and no compassion is one in which, you know,
Well,
is a trouble.
let me ask you, if you're in court, the court has nothing to do with compassion. The court is based on law. That's it. There is no compassion, even though should exist. It does not.
Oh, I hear that. Yes, I hear that. I hear that. To sit with that. Because I'm also thinking about, when you think about like the, I don't know if it maybe the words that we're using in terms of rachamim, compassion and mercy don't necessarily, because they are divine in and of itself, the midah of divinity, when we talk about Adonai and Elohim. And so I recognize that. But I also wonder when we go to, let's say someone's convicted and now their sentencing happens. What things are taken into account when we determine the sentencing? Now, I don't know, it could be mercy, it could be justice, it could be, right, like, it could be pretty black and white. But there are also times in which people share from their sense of self that they have offering forgiveness and they have forgiven, and so the punishment shouldn't be as severe. So I don't know what that means or where that plays a role, but there's something that's ruminating in my head on that, so I recognize that within the confines of the case and of the court, that the law is the law, and the judge, as our Torah tells us, should be, should be impartial. But there's a reason why the text is bringing out justice, and mingling it with the notion of rachamim and din, and so there is some sort of play there. And whether that should be, whether compassion and mercy should drive us as pursuers of justice, but then recognizing that within the justice system or the legal system, that the space for that is diminished, whereas the pursuing of it is amplified. So I don't know, but thank you for bringing that up. Beautiful. Okay, one more.
Yeah, from the context of this argument, it would seem that love and mercy is an extension of Elohim and Adonai. And the crime committed thereafter is a violation of this love and mercy and therefore punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what I want us to think about today on this Shabbat as we sort of sit with the text, the phrase tzedek tzedek tirdof is not one that is unfamiliar. And so the reason I bring it to the class today and that we spend time on it today is that it should not become too familiar. Meaning, it should continuously inspire us. It should continue to be an aspirational goal that we as the living embodiment of Torah, of the idea that we are a people that should be a light into this world, that as human beings and as part of the human experiment of what it means to be in community and to be in relationship with others, that we should be inspired and we should be continuously living to pursue justice, but also justice. Should we seek, should we do, should we bring into this world a level of justice that is not just a justice of fairness, but a justice that is amplified and enhanced through love, through mercy, through compassion, and may we continue to be those who bring about a sense of fairness, equality, of peace, and of wholeness into this world, and for the world that our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren will inherit. May it truly be one, not just of one level of tzedek, but of a tzedek that is coming from the depths of our being, so that it can be a light into the world and to the world to come. Shabbat shalom.